Today we're going to talk about beta readers. I'm very excited. So for the next 30 minutes, that's what we're going to talk about. I will be interviewing Gala on this topic since she is really closer to it. It's been 4 years since I launched a book. So I think it's been less than that for you. So 1 year, yeah. So I am a science fiction and fantasy writer, and I help science fiction and fantasy writers. And my specialty is editing, and I love helping authors in the editing phase. So I'll tell you more about that later. And I am published 3 different series out, 12 books out. I think I'm just finished writing the first draft of book 17. Crazy, so much fun. I'm now thinking about writing a short story based on one of my characters for an anthology competition. Anyway, that's what I have going on. Gala, can you introduce yourself? And I know there's a little bit wonky with your sound there, so let's give it a go. Welcome.
Okay. Welcome. Everybody let me know if you guys can hear me okay. We kind of had a little bit of a technical issue today. I'm also a little bit under the weather. I was sick all weekend. My daughter was sick before, so I'm kind of like not high energy. I'm going to have my coffee. I'm going to try to get into the mood, but I am an author. I have published 9 romance books, and I'm working right now on an urban fantasy, and I have completed like 15 manuscripts at this point and worked with a variety of beta readers. So I think this is one of my topics that people on social media were asking about, and I think that anybody who is about to publish, whether this is their first book or their whatever number book, beta readers is on their minds. So I'm excited to answer all the questions. And if you have questions, guys, as we talk, please put them in the chat and we will make sure to answer those as well. And I'm also working right now on the sales page for my Write Your Novel 101 course. Thank you, Beth, for looking through all of those things. It's not ready for public, but I'm excited to get it out there into the world and see what people think.
That's awesome. Yes, we know how much work that is. So folks, pop into the chat if you're able to. What are you writing? Have you worked with beta readers? What phase of the writing process are you in? Writing, editing, publishing, marketing, getting ready to publish. So let's talk beta readers. Let's define beta readers. And also some people talk about alpha readers and also ARC readers. So if you could define those 3 terms, and we're going to get into a few juicy questions on the topic.
And these are my definitions. I don't know if there is like an industry standard, but the way I differentiate between them is, to me, an alpha reader is somebody who is going to be reading your draft either as you are writing it, or somebody who is going to read your very first, very raw draft that has brackets in it, that says word, that might not have emotions, where the plot line is not necessarily very clean or clear. It is somebody who is reading the rawest version of your writing. And the goal there is for them to give the reaction and what they think they understand and they don't understand as they're writing. So it's kind of like somebody who you really, 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 really trust, and who does not care about the messiness. They want to be there in the book with you. The beta reader is usually a draft that A, is complete, and B, usually you did some level of work. And that is where different authors will differ. For some people, it's you did everything that you could do as a self-edit yourself, and then you're going to give it to them. For some, it's you probably did the developmental part, but you didn't really do line edits or anything that more specific, and you're going to consider the beta reader. It depends a little bit on where is it that you're looking for feedback and what kind of feedback you're looking for. Some people do it before any type of outsourced editing. I feel like most of the time that's what I found. Some people do it at the same time as the big developmental edit. When they hire a developmental editor for a manuscript critique or for a full developmental edit, they send it to beta readers at the same time. And then when they're going to be doing their big edit, they collect information from both sides. There is no right way. I think it depends on what you feel most comfortable with, what is your timeline? I think people who do beta readers and developmental edits at the same time are working on a shorter timeline, and they want to incorporate both because they don't want to spend time here and then extra time there. I don't think that there is the right answer. If you're not sure, try one way with one book, try another way with the other book. You're going to find what it is. Beta readers, though, still get a book that is not fully finished. It's finished as a draft, but we expect that beta readers would come and tell us anything from plot holes and what they feel about characters to kind of more on the page things where they say, oh, I'm not like feeling it, like that scene is feeling flat to me. And then arc readers is, for the arc readers, I would expect that you have gone through all stages of editing, maybe not proofreading. Maybe you're doing arc reading and proofreading at the same time, but you have gone through all stages of editing. You've gone through all of your alpha readers, beta readers, developmental edits, line and copy edits, and then you send it to the readers. So it is pretty close to final. It is not yet final. And I always say for arc readers, this is not the final. And I absolutely expect my arc readers to tell me, oh, I found this typo. Oh, the paragraphing is wonky here. So to me, arc readers do a little bit of the proofreading job. And sometimes I have given my stuff to arc readers after proofreaders and they still would find things. And I do always that big disclaimer, this is almost final, but it's not a final. You still have a chance to go through and make those little changes that arc readers point out before you do the final publish. So that's kind of the gamut of the three different ones.
That's great. So we have a great question here from Kieran, who says they write epic fantasy and midlife romance. Awesome. And they've never had the idea of even how to find a beta reader. So I just want to jump right to that, because I think that's the hardest thing. Where do you find a beta reader, even if you don't have a big author community or even a reader list? Maybe you haven't even published, you haven't even started building your list. So, or any kind of platform at all. So you want to speak to that? I have lots of thoughts on that as well. So I'll jump in as well. But you, please, where do you go at the beginning?
So to me, I would caution you against going to your friends and relatives unless they specifically read in your genres. This is like the biggest advice I would give to you. Do not use your friends and relatives as beta readers unless they are the readers of your genre. So if I have a neighbor and I have a person who I go to book club with, and they both read romance, they love romance, and I have used them as beta readers and they're excellent, but they're huge romance lovers. So would I ask my husband to be my beta reader? No, I would absolutely not. He is not a romance reader. He's a fantasy guy, and I am not going to look to him for advice. So with that in mind, do not just ask anybody. Like if you're part of a critique group or something like that, for a beta reader, you want somebody who is in your genre. If you are in a critique group and you have people in your genre, absolutely you can ask them to be a beta reader. A lot of times I find that ends up being, you read mine, I read yours. But some people are fine doing it just because they enjoy doing it.
But what if you don't have a critique group? You're just getting started.
Yeah, if you don't have anybody, I would go to Facebook. I actually would go to Facebook communities. There are beta reader Facebook communities. There are people who are looking for that kind of stuff. I would go and I will look in places, if you like, Discord servers, Facebook communities, whatever other online places, you can search for them. There are people who want to do beta reading. And I would say you need to vet them for sure. There is to me, a vetting process. So I would run people through a list, like a long form. I do the same thing for arc readers, because if the person is not committed to filling out a long form, they probably are not going to be necessarily, and you don't know them, they probably will not necessarily be committed to reading your story. I would also ask them if they have paid like Goodreads or Amazon or somewhere where you can look at their reviews. And at this point with beta readers, you're not looking at their reviews as, ooh, they're giving everybody 2-star reviews, I don't want them to be as my ARC reader, but you're looking at what kind of stuff are they reading? Because we're going back to the same premise. If you're seeing that they're mostly reading mystery and thrillers and you're writing horror fantasy, they might not be the right beta reader for you. Like it's kind of a big, like I wouldn't go there. Then any author communities that you're part of, because there will be other authors who might be looking for beta readers as well. So there will be probably the quid pro quo. You're going to be doing it for them. They're going to be doing it for you. That's where I would go if you don't know anybody at all normally. But if you have done publishing before, if you actually have published a book previously, I would actually go to your street team and ARC readers first. And I would ask them, hey guys, you've already known my work. You're already part of this. Would you like to go to a more raw level and be part of the book at the kind of like this more influential point of it? And then the third thing I would say, that's what I was talking to Maddie Davenport over a couple of Substack lives, is what about trying serialization and using serialization as a way to find and solicit that feedback? It means your story is finished, you've done a good amount of editing on it already, but then you put it out for people to read either for free or for paid. And that's how you're soliciting feedback. That's been how I started originally with Wattpad. It was for free. I would put stuff, and I would get comments and input from other readers, and then change my story down the road as a result. So those are kind of 3 places my thought went to. What about you, Beth? How would you go about it?
Well, I, similar to you, I've used my critique partners. We do exchange manuscripts, and as Patrick is sharing in the chat that he's very happy to be a beta reader when he has enough time to dedicate to the project, of course. So it's fun to do it that way. When I was first starting out, beta readers were, I found them on social media by putting a very clear pitch about the book and what I needed. And I would just vet them that way. And mixed results. Now I use my reader list and ask them to get on a beta reader list, a very specific list that's just for beta readers. And they have to fill out a form, like you were saying. It's probably not as long as your form. I ask them to, if I don't know them, I say, where have you, no, that's an ARC team. I do want to know if they've posted reviews of my work before. And then I do want to mention something I haven't used, but some of my writers have used, which is there are services out there that are really like exchange services. You beta read of some manuscripts, and then you gain some points, and then you can put your book into the circuit. And I've heard mixed reviews of those, and I was just looking for the resource. I could not find it, but I don't use those services. Maybe you can pull up that link. There's a few different services that are like that. And then the other place I want to offer is for clients of mine, and I've seen other writing coaches do this too, is they will put out the word for their writers and say, my writer is looking for beta readers and even ARC readers. Here's what it's about. Take these steps to come in, fill out a form or something like that, be vetted. And then I also want to add, like, if you're, Kieran, you're here, you could post in our chat. I also have a community. If you sign up for my newsletter via bethbarany.com, you can get into our Fellowship of the Pen and ask for beta readers there and ARC readers there. Yes, Patrick, we did talk about the difference between ARC readers and beta readers, and Gala, you'll be able to listen to this on the replay, but basically ARC readers are, your book is almost done. It's almost ready to go out. Usually, I don't know about you, but I use ARC readers also to start generating reviews. But
100%. Yes. The main reason for ARC readers is to generate reviews. That's the primary goal. And it's kind of like a side benefit that they will also notice some final proofreading and formatting things. And I think, Patrick, you're also asking, need to avoid the overlap. So what I have done is that I have nowadays alpha readers, beta readers, and ARC readers. I go through all three, and I would usually allow one person to do both, but not all three. So they can be an alpha and an ARC. They can be a beta and an ARC. I don't usually use the same person for an alpha and a beta, but I can. It's totally fine for a person to be an alpha and an ARC and a beta and an ARC. But all two, three, it's the same thing as using the same editor for developmental and line edits. It is possible, but I would always recommend to split it into two different people because they just notice different things. The same person has been in this work many times and reread it. They're just going to automatically, by human nature, not pay attention to everything just because they've seen the work too much. So I hope that addresses your stuff.
Oh,
And then I'm serializing now in Substack, so I could add simply preceding paragraph asking for image. Absolutely. Yes. I highly recommend go to Mattie Dellenpour's at Sea Substack, which is she just finished serializing her mystery novel, and see how she set it up with questions. But absolutely 100% utilize your serialization.
absolutely. And I'm putting in the chat. I also wrote an article on my blog, Writers Fun Zone, on what questions to ask your beta readers. And I have a few more resources I'll tag onto today's talk. And I also want to read Patrick's comment. Yes, I see beta reading as nuts and bolts, fine tuning rather than generating reviews. Absolutely. Beta readers like helping us make the story better. And I love what you were saying, Gala, about what kind of impact they're helping us shape the story, and that's a wonderful impact. So here's another question that some people might ask, which is, how is getting feedback from beta readers different than from working with an editor or a book coach?
Very, very different, because I think a lot of people think that if they do beta readers, they don't need an editor, but the main difference is reader. Beta readers are giving you their experience as a reader. They're going to tell you, "Oh, I got super excited here," or, "Oh, that character, I just hate him. I throw the book across the..." They are going to say, "Oh, this sentence, I was reading it and I kind of was stumbling over it." You can specifically direct them, but they're going to be giving you reader side. And if you're writing a mystery or thriller or something like that, that's one of the things I was talking with Mattie. One of the things that she was asking every chapter, who do you think the killer is? Who do you think the killer is? And she was seeing how the readers deciding, and that was helping her figure out if she is putting good enough red herrings, if there is a variety of things, right? When you go to the editor is the person who knows the craft of writing a story. They're going to look at character arcs, at voice, at specific scene construction, making sure that you're guiding your story in a way that is satisfactory. And there are so many components. And then the line editor is going to go and is going to be telling you, "Oh, you're using filter words or filler words, or how can you make the sentence that has 22 words say the same thing and stronger in 15 words." The level of work and the type of feedback differs greatly. If you have another author friend who may be very craft interested, giving you beta feedback, and you might be asking them, I'm going to say that kind of veers a little bit more into the critique partner territory. Majority of the time, beta readers will not give you craft information or will not even notice craft information because they're readers, and that's what you want. You want that reader experience. You don't want them to be the editor. You want to see what they're feeling, how they're reacting, and what their general slow, fast, yay, nay, and kind of emotional response to your story is.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is so good. Patrick says, absolutely, Gala, beta readers catch the vibes or not that the author aims to create. Yep. And Phyllis says, thank you for the resources, Beth, and also appreciate the in-depth comments from Gala. Absolutely. Let's dive into some of those questions. I've put 2 articles in the chat, both from my blog, and today's podcast episode is on this topic, in fact, which is an audio version of one of my articles. And it's very short because I read the questions and I also shared a little bit about the process. So I have some thoughts about the questions, but
And I see Patrick saying, I suppose I must be overly fussy because I do suggest word and syntax changes.
yes.
You absolutely can. And I have some people too, but a lot of times it depends on where the author is asking you to do the beta reading, because when I ask people to do my beta reading, I usually do it before my line edits. So a lot of the phrasing that exists on the page, I haven't even touched. So a lot of times, like some of the paragraphs won't even exist. Some of those sentences I'm probably going to be moving around anyways. So I always say, if you want to, absolutely put them in, but usually that's where it's kind of like a preference, personal author preference.
Yeah.
If they tell you do the syntax, do the syntax. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So the top question, let's see, Gala, can you, Kieran is asking for that writer's name you suggested. Who's
yeah, I'll find Maddie's.
And I'll go ahead and put it in the chat since I'm driving the ship here. So in terms of what questions to ask, I always, in my article that says 3 essential editing tips, beta readers, I even have a template email in there. This is once someone has agreed to give me feedback and I've vetted them as best I can. Sometimes I don't vet them that much, but I aim for getting about 10 to 20 beta readers, especially when I'm steering the ship in a new direction, when I'm writing in a new genre. So the first question I ask is, at what point does the motivation or the actions of the characters seem unrealistic? Because I want them to be in the story, in the logic of the story. And if something feels off or unrealistic, I want to know. And so I just want them to point to it. Number 2, where does the story get boring? You know, their interest might flag. I want to know that. 3, what was missing or what did you want more of? Number 4, what would make this a 5-star story for you? This one I borrowed from my husband, Ezra Barany, who's also a novelist. And he always says, please tell me, what would make this a 5-star story for you? Because I don't want to find out later when my book is up on Amazon that it sucks. So he invites, the big, maybe even harsh commentary. Did you feel attached to the characters? That's number 5. Yes or no? And then number 6 is optional. Like Patrick, you can't help but offer in typographical commentary. I have people who do that too. So optional is any line edits like typos or grammar would be great. And then I always say, thank you for your honesty. I would rather learn that my story doesn't work now than learn that it sucks from Amazon reviewers. And I don't take constructive criticism personally. So I am inviting criticism, but it needs to be constructive. I've had people who don't give me constructive feedback, and we could talk about how to handle that. Things to keep in mind when you are working with beta readers: do give them a reasonable deadline, depending on how much I'm sending, because sometimes I'm sending 2 chapters at a time. Sometimes I'm sending the whole book. Do give them a reasonable deadline. Do remind them. Don't be shy. Remind folks. And also understand if they can't follow through. People are volunteering their time here. Be gracious. Say thank you with whatever people offer you. And then in the few minutes we have remaining, we might want to talk about this next bit, which is use the feedback you're given and integrate it in a way that's right for you. And I know this is a big topic. You ahead of time, you gave me a lot of questions, Gala, and there was like 5 questions that related to this. Like, how do you sort through all the feedback? So let's touch on that.
I feel like it's very important. I find that authors, especially if you're a new author or if you're going into a new genre, there's so many doubts already. You're already like, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? And then imagine you get 10 replies about something, and if they all agree, if you see a clear pattern, I would pay attention to that. Like if there's a clear pattern and everybody's like, in that chapter I was bored, or I skipped through it, or oh my God, that was the most exciting, the best, like I adored that portion. Usually consensus means there is merit to it.
Yeah.
If you have a place where, first of all, I am against, this is my personal preference, and I tell that to my beta readers, I do not want beta readers to suggest changes to me. I want them to tell me how they're feeling. what is their experience. I want them to tell me, oh, I was sort of bored here. Oh, I stumbled off this pages. I don't want it to be about, oh, you did this here. This is not what I'm looking for from my beta readers. I'm looking for the language that says, I experienced this, I thought this, I felt like this. And my job as an author is when I see multiple different reactions to the same chapter, to see, oh, the reactions might be different, but what is the underlying cause? Why did somebody find this boring? And why did somebody feel like, oh, they were stumbling over something? And why did the other person say, oh, I feel like I wasn't clear on what the backstory and who this person is? Usually the key reason that the feedback is different is because there is something there that you can tweak, and they are just noticing different symptoms of the same core issue.
Yeah.
But sometimes there is truly a confounding feedback where I would get something and people are just telling me things that I utterly disagree with. And I would always say, you go with your gut. You go with your gut. Or you may bring this up with your editor down the road and see what your editor says. Because if you have a trusted editor, I would trust them more than the readers. But it will be, if you're not sure, reader or your gut, I would trust your gut first. You're the author. You decide in the end, it's your word. And then work on that maybe with your editor more if like you want somebody else who is more trusted. But I am my own authority always in the end because I don't know. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I even disagree with my critique partners over my readers, actually, to disagree with you. Sometimes my readers will respond really positively, like they're really getting what I'm trying to do, the beta readers, versus the critique partners will be overly critical. And I don't work with developmental editors, being one, but also one of my critique partners is one, and they're super in-depth. But they don't always get what I'm doing because we're not exactly in the same genres. We cross over, but we're so.
That's kind of my biggest starting point was get people in your genre. That makes a huge difference.
Especially, I tend to write kind of crossover, not experimental per se, but doing some new things that aren't traditionally done before. So my critique partners, who are awesome, aren't necessarily game to go in that direction, and that's okay. You know, I need them because they tell me when I've crossed a boundary into something else, and I'm like, well, maybe I want to go in that new direction. And my readers will tell me, "Ooh, I love what you're doing with this." You know, so Patrick said, where does the story get boring? Is such a great question. Yes, such a good question. Kieran asked, do you think a subreddit would be a good place to find beta or ARC readers? I'm not in subreddit and Reddit at all, but yeah. Although I was thinking about them today, I might go there for some research. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I also share
a subreddit. Remember, you have to have a form, whether it's shorter like Beth's or longer. I'm just a longer form person in my life, so everything is longer. You want to vet them. Like beta readers, all the readers you want to vet, but beta readers you want to vet. You don't want a person who's going to be pooping on your parade. You want feedback, but again, it has to be constructive. You don't want to be somebody who's going to be unnecessarily negative, because that's just not, you don't want that energy in your life.
Yeah. You definitely want to find supportive folks. Now, you know, again, a word to anyone trying to do something new. You may have people, beta readers, who are telling you to go in a different direction. And I found this out when I was working on my sci-fi mystery series. I got some critique that really wanted me to write hard sci-fi. And I knew I was not writing hard sci-fi. And other people who really responded well to my mix of detective story and romance and kind of light sci-fi, according to the hard sci-fi folks. And, you know, so that was also sort of reinforcing my gut. Oh, Gala, you can post in the chat. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I'm on a computer today.
Yay.
On that, what you just mentioned, sometimes that is also an actually good thing, because if somebody's saying, oh, you need to go harder, this is not hard sci-fi, that is actually a good clue for you to afterwards tell people, my story is not hard sci-fi. Yeah. It's good, because once you're going to be looking for ARC readers, or when you're going to be talking to readers, you're going to say, no, this is not hard sci-fi. This is for people who like blah, or this is a good differentiator. If people are starting to tell you, oh, go further, go more, and you're like, no, I'm writing a cozy mystery here. We do not have on the page violence. This is not the vibe I'm after. This reconfirms a lot of times what is it that you're writing, and that negative feedback could actually be positive for you because you know what you're not writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are going to wrap up for today. Next week, we are going to talk more in this world. Let's see. I already scheduled it. It's going to be how to run a book review campaign. So this is Yay, ARC readers. We're going to go deeper into ARC readers. And the week after that, we're going to talk about how to run a street team. And Gala's going to be our resident expert for those new 2 things. And then in September, we're going to talk about organizing your writer's life, including an interview with someone who is an expert in organization. If you want to learn more about my Edit Lab, sign up for Edit Your Novel Checklist, where you'll learn more about that. And Gala, go ahead and put your chat in. Gala's got a fabulous, in-depth Write Your Novel class coming up this fall. And I'm sharing that because Gala and I work together. Gala and I trained her up some on how to run her business as a book coach. So I support her work. She's an incredibly in-depth, robust writing teacher. Will really help you go from idea, don't blush, Gala, from idea to
I'm blushing.
a great sense of completion. You're going to work on your novel for 12 weeks, and that will be coming soon. But if you're curious about working with Gala, go ahead and check out her website. And also put if they want to chat with you, what's that link? Or do you want me to put that in there?
The 15-minute link, I can actually put it in because I'm on the computer today. I'm going to see what the quality of video is because my camera on my computer is super old. So I feel like my quality of my camera is not quite as nice as a result, but I'm going to put this in. So yeah, I have this link is the Calendly Direct.
Fabulous.
Thank you, Amy, for her comments. I think I have Amy. And is Phyllis here too?
Yeah, Phyllis is here today too. Yeah.
I have them both in my Write Your Novel Summer Edition class. Such a great cohort. I really enjoyed having them. We're almost done. Summer is almost over, but it's been.
And Phyllis and Gala are both in my Edit Lab. So if you are a science fiction or fantasy writer, check out our Edit Lab. If you join by September 1st, you'll be able to come in to the September 2nd call, where we are going to talk about how do you handle specifically, I'm going to give like 3 big tips on how to give and receive critique, because that is such an important thing to be able to do when we're deep in the edit process.
That's actually, that's what we were just working this last Saturday in the Write Your Novel Summer Edition. So I feel like we're wavelength.
We're on the same wavelength. All right, everyone. See you next week. And be sure to follow Gala and I. Gala runs fabulous interviews on Substack. Keep an eye on what we're doing. Stay cool, Patrick, in Italy. Oh my gosh, I know the temperatures in Europe. Oh, and have a great week, everyone. Bye.